Hi everybody, today's lesson is all about the angles in what we call the unit circle. The unit circle is very special. It has radius 1, so the distance from the center to the radius of that circle is 1 unit. And it also has reference angles of 30, 45, and 60 degrees, which is also pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3 radians. So we're focusing on these specific angles around this circle. So I'm going to start with my 30 and 60 degree angles, and I'm going to use blue for this. I'm going to try to color code this to help you out. So you may want to do the same, but otherwise make sure you're just paying close attention. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my 30 degree reference angles. I'm actually just going to do 30 in blue here. So if I start at 0 degrees, the first angle that's 30 degrees away is right that first angle. If I move over to quadrant 2, I get to say that this angle right here is also 30 degrees. But that gives me 150 degrees because remember, all the way to 180, the distance between 150 and 180 is 30. I'm also going to label here 90 and 270 and 360, but hopefully you already know those. So if I move to quadrant 3, the angle I'm looking at here is the reference angle is 30, so it's 30 past 180, so that's 210 degrees. And then in quadrant 4, I'm at 330 degrees, because again, 330 is 30 degrees away from 360 degrees. So these are all the angles around my unit circle that have a reference angle of 30 degrees. So I can do the same thing with my 60 degree angles now, and I'm going to do 60 in red. So if I move around my unit circle to get to 60 degrees, going all the way up here to 60 degrees. Similarly, in quadrant 2, I'm 60 away from 180, which is 120 degrees, right? If I go 60, add another 60 to 120, add another 60 to 180. I'm going to add another 60 down here to get to 240, add another 60 to get 300, which then if I added that last 60, it'd be over to 360. So I'm just cutting my unit circle into pieces of 60 degrees. So before I move on to 45 degrees, I actually want to go through this in radians. The reason I'm going to do this 30 and the 60 at the same time is because they're related. So we should know that 30 is pi over 6 radians. Now I'm just cutting my pieces into 30 degree increments. So from 30 to 60 is another 30 degrees, which is pi over 6. So I need to add pi over 6, which is 2 pi over 6. To my next 30 degree increment is at 90, so that's 3 pi over 6. Then I'm going to move to 4 pi over 6, then 5 pi over 6, and 6 pi over 6. So let's take a break and recap what we just did. Right now I'm just moving in increments of 1/6 pi. Right, so 1/6, then I move to 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5 over 6, 6 over 6. Okay, and I can continue around the whole circle this way. I've got 7 pi over 6, then I've got 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and 12 pi over 6. So I still try to use my colors because I still need to reduce my fractions. So first one that I see is 2 pi over 6. This is the same as pi over 3. And hopefully we know that 60 is pi over 3. So anything with a 60-degree reference angle or pi over 3 reference angle has to have denominator 3. So 90 degrees is pi over 2. We already know that, but 3 over 6 reduces to pi over 2. And you can even reduce, or you can even erase this 3 pi over 6 if you want. It's up to you. And then I'm going to move to 4 pi over 6. Well, 4 pi over 6 is the same as 2 pi over 3. And again, that's good because my reds are my 60-degree reference angle, which means I have to have denominator 3. 5 pi over 6 doesn't reduce. 6 pi over 6 is pi. And I'm going to erase that because all you need to know is that it's pi. But it's good to be able to interchange equivalent fractions. So like 6 over 6 or 3 over 3, those all equal 1. 240, 8 pi over 6. Well, 8 pi over 6 is 4 pi over 3. 270 is 3 pi over 2, right? 1.5 pi's here. 10 pi over 6 reduces to 5 pi over 3. And 12 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi. Okay? So far, I have all of my 30-degree reference angles and all of my 60-degree reference angles. If you're a little confused, I would recommend starting over and watching again. But everything in blue is 30 degrees away from the x-axis. The reference angle is 30. Everything in red has a reference angle of 60. Okay, and I'm actually going to go ahead and change this 90 to black, and same with this 180, so I can really stick with my colors here so I don't confuse you. So 270 and 0 and 360. So then that way the blacks are all those quadrantals. So the only piece that I have left is pi over 4. And I'm going to go ahead and do that 45 degrees in purple. So right now I've got 45 degrees. That's halfway between 0 and 90. Because if I'm going to add 45 around, so 45 plus 45 is 90, plus 45 is 135 degrees, plus 45 is 180, plus another 45 is 225 degrees, then I've got 270, then I've got 315. So basically, what I want you to do now is ignore the fact that I have anything else on this unit circle. I only want you to look at the purple. So my 45-degree reference angle in quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, the angle is 135 because it's 45 degrees away from 180. Then in quadrant 3, I'm at 225 degrees, 45 degrees away. And in quadrant 4, I'm at 315, which is also 45 degrees away. So those are degrees. We still have to do radians. What I do know is that 45 degrees is pi over 4 radians. Okay? Now I'm going to add 1/4 to everything, because remember 1 pi is this semicircle. Then I'm going to cut this into fourths. So this is 1 pi over 4. This is technically 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and 4 pi over 4. Okay, we already know that 4 over 4 reduces to 1, and 2 over 4 reduces to 1/2. Well, important pieces are 1 pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4. So after I get to 4 pi over 4, I have to add another fourth. So that gets me to 5 pi over 4. Then I add another one, which gets me to 6 pi over 4. Then I add another one, 7 pi over 4. And then I'm at 8 pi over 4. Adding that last fourth, which reduces to 2 pi. But we already know that. So I know this is a lot of information at once, but I just have this big circle full of angles. So these are angles that you should start to recognize. Okay, you should be able to label all of these angles around this circle. If you want to practice, you could take out a piece of paper and draw another one. But we have to get familiar with these angles, and because we're going to build on this as we continue. See you later.